Sorry, Kelly, Tanya, I thought you guys knew Carl is not going to make it tonight.
Well, thank you, board person, board secretary.
Recording in progress.
Good. Thank you. He just texted me now.
All right. Greetings, everyone. I'm Tanya Morrow. I'm the chair of the Rogue Valley Transportation District Board, and I'm going to call the regular board meeting of July 2026 to order. Kelly, will you be doing the roll calls and stuff today too? Or
Paige?
No, Paige
I
will.
can do it.
Okay. Thank you, Paige. Would you do a roll call for attendance?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Tyler Jasper,
Here.
Denise Kraus,
Here.
Bill Mansfield,
Here.
Tanya Morrow,
Yes, here.
Katrina Ernman Newton.
Here.
Oh, good. Okay, we could hear you.
Huzzah.
She's been having a little bit of connection problems, so just need to be patient when and I'll be paying attention to you, Katrina, because I'm right here able to see your video and everything. Okay, Dan Davis.
Here. Here.
And Carl McNair.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 6 board members present. We have a quorum.
All right, I imagine we don't have anybody lined up to provide public comment, correct? Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have any objections to the consent agenda? Then we'll deem the 6/24/2026 board meeting minutes approved. All right, moving right along to our public meetings law and bylaws amendments.
A suggested change, we do have item number 1. It's an action item for nominations and
Oops,
election of
sorry.
our board chair and vice chair.
Thank you for paying. This is the second time I've missed that.
I nominate Tonya Morrow.
Okay, I'll serve for at least one more year, I guess. Any other nominations? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. How about for vice chair?
I nominate Dan Davis.
Any other nominations? Close nominations. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, now we're rolling straight.
I'm hoping for a battle.
Straight on to number 5.
Okay, and I'm going to be presenting this for you tonight. We were able to connect with our SDAO, that's Special Districts Association of Oregon, regarding our bylaws, but more importantly, the public meetings law that we were asked to make sure that we were adhering to. And I was able to connect them, unfortunately, on Wednesday of last week, late Wednesday. And what I learned was a couple of things. One, our need to adopt the policy does not need to occur until November, which means that we submit some items from the district, making sure that we are adhering to several things, not just the public meetings law, that allows for us to have a discount in our insurance. But number 2, in my conversation with the person that I spoke with, who was not the original person that Luann Spencer had spoke with, I clarified that if we were going to be updating and revising our bylaws, which are very old bylaws, that it possibly means that we don't need to adopt a secondary public meetings law policy, which was sort of a workaround I learned from what we were trying to do without having to revise the bylaws. So we do have some time. I would offer up that we don't have to officially adopt revised bylaws tonight, because as you've seen, there is a significant number of track changes, and I would like for everyone to have an opportunity to go through them thoroughly and also provide you with a clean copy, a copy that it has essentially all of those revisions changed, so that you can read through them in a more coherent way without having to see all the track changes. So preface it with all of that, saying that we don't actually have to adopt them tonight and that we could send out another version that's a cleaned copy. But with that, we did go through the bylaws. We not only updated them grammatically, there was just some minor grammatical edits that needed to be made. We also updated what was practice of the board versus what was actually in the bylaws themselves. And then we did the best of our abilities to go through and make sure that they were consistent with the adopted, or sorry, not the adopted, but the most recently adopted legislative public meetings law. And that in itself is a whole body of information. It's lots of Oregon revised statutes. It's several pages of information. There is no intention to make all of the public meetings law reflected in the bylaws. That would be pages and pages and pages. And it's supposed to be a higher level document that stays with us for several years. What we tried to do, though, was make sure that anything that was specifically pertaining to public notice, public comment, receiving board agenda packets, having the agenda format, those types of items that were in the bylaws, that they were consistent with the public meetings law. And so we made those changes, we've sent them out to the board, and with that, I'm hoping that you might have some questions or some comments on what you've received and reviewed.
All right, without objection, we will not make this a decision item, but we can make it a discussion item. So why don't we go ahead? I think Tyler's hand was up first. Bill,
Just barely beat you. Okay, I do have
I
a couple.
apparently didn't, well, I don't know whether I received the cleaned up version or not, but I don't believe we need to lard up the bylaws with the Oregon statutes about public meetings. We're bound by them, whether in any event, I don't see any point in spending a lot of paperwork just recopying provisions of it. So on page 5, I think we could properly eliminate that. That's one comment I have. It's not a very, my comments are not very important. They're just in passing. On page 5, you talk about adjournment, and it is true that a motion can be made by a member and the majority can decide on adjournment, but the chair also has the power to declare the meeting is adjourned when there's no further business. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to throw that little phrase in so that nobody thinks that we're limited to the board passing on adjournment. It's a terribly small point, but
yeah, no, it's a good one. I had noticed that too. I think Paige, you respond to, but I think one of the reasons that we started down this road is because in order for us to get our discount on the insurance, there needs to be some document that says that the board knows is liable to comply with the
why don't
public
we just
records rules.
sign a document?
Well, we could, but I mean, there's only just a paragraph here.
Okay.
Right?
Well, we're just wasting paper. But
I know.
It's not a crime.
I know it's not a crime, I guess. Anyway, I think that's the reason why we've got so much emphasis on the public meetings laws. Right. Okay. All right. Tyler, go ahead.
Hey, Paige, I have just a couple of grammar ones that I think you probably intended to get that maybe got missed. One example, page 2, section 3C, line 6. Pretty much everywhere else in the document, his is crossed out and replaced with their or they. But line 6 there near the bottom of page 2, we got a rogue his regarding either verbally or in writing of his resignation.
Oh, okay.
You got one more at the top of page 7. Let's see, it looks like D, if an officer is unable to complete his term, he will notify the board. I'm guessing you meant for that to be they and them.
Good catch, yes.
I only have those pedantic notes. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to raise as a question or a comment?
I have a quick one.
Go ahead.
Given that board packets will be going out or have the option of going out by email, are we bound by the same kind of accessibility guidelines that other public institutions are? Because I'm in the library space, we've been talking a lot about web accessibility and kind of WCAG 2 and making sure everything's very accessible. Are we aiming for those same standards and are we held to them? Thanks.
I can respond to that with what I've learned on the public meetings law. The board agenda and notice of the public meeting does need to be provided on our website, at least 4 business days in advance of our meeting. However, the entire packet, the board meeting packet, does not. We are also not required to list the board meetings time or location any longer in a newspaper, but we are still required to put it on our website. However, if there's a public hearing, then we do need to put it into a general circulation newspaper. That's a notice to the public that there is a public hearing. And so that there's a difference there, right? Not all of our meetings have a public hearing. And so we do not always have to put it into a newspaper. Only if it's a public hearing agenda item do we need to do that. We also are held to a standard that if someone from the general public requests an agenda from us within 4 days of our meeting, that we provide it to them by email. So it's not as though we have to submit it or have it in wide circulation to an email list. It's only if someone requests it specifically from us, or if there is a presentation by a member of the public or a body of the public, say the library district is going to come to our meeting and provide a presentation, then it is recommended but not required that we provide them with a copy of the agenda, again, within 4 business days of our meeting. Does that answer your question?
Mostly, yeah. Thank you.
That means the agenda, but not the presentation themselves, right?
Just the agenda.
Just the agenda,
Yeah.
correct.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Oh, Madam Chair, I just wanted to bring up one, just kind of as a newbie reading these. If you look at number 2, it says objectives. And it talks about what the RVTD Board of Directors, what their authority is. And I talked with Julie a little bit while she was on vacation, and I'm really glad that the board is not going to take action on this, but kind of think about some things. And like Paige said, take a look at the clean copy so it's not so cumbersome to go through this red line. But one of the things I noticed was under the responsibilities of the board is it says the board of directors is committed to maintaining safe and effective public transit service to the citizens served within RVTD's jurisdictional boundaries. To that end, it shall adopt budgets, supervise RVTD's general manager, and generally oversee the operations of RVTD, which I will tell you, I was surprised when I read that, because typically policy bodies don't oversee sort of day-to-day operations. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time maybe looking at the creation of RVTD and the RVTD board. Maybe this is the language that is in the, initial creating documents of RVTD. I don't know. But I thought I would just bring it up as something that it was just kind of a little ping on my radar.
Go ahead.
I don't think we need to specify the authority of the district in the bylaws. The bylaws are for the purpose of deciding procedure. The statute already tells us what our authority is, so we're just wasting paper putting that kind of stuff in. People want to make bylaws way too long. The bylaws should be not more than a couple of pages long.
Well,
That's my view.
thank you.
Good point.
I will say that I looked up the statute, so the organizing statute, and it says I mean, I'm just paraphrasing because I'm trying to look it up, but the buck stops with the board. So that's why the language of the statute seems a lot broader than the idea that all we're doing is like guiding staff. Does that make sense?
Right.
So I don't have it in front of me, but.
Oh, no, that's fine. If that's
Yeah.
the case, then that's totally fine. Like I said, I come from a different world where policy bodies really are policy bodies and not day-to-day operations overseers, because that's a lot of responsibility for a board. But if that's the case, that's totally fine. I just wanted to bring it up as an item.
That's good. Go ahead. Yeah.
I have to agree with Helen. I've been on boards where some of the board members wanted to direct each item that is an executive type responsibility. And it gets crazy when you have that kind of situation. So I don't know if that needs to be covered in this subject or not. But I agree that a board should not be directing day-to-day operations in any way. I think it overcomes the ability of staff and the executive director to do their job. Hi, Bill.
The chair hasn't recognized me yet.
Oh, sorry. Hello. Go ahead, Bill, please.
The law is real clear that the board has a duty to determine policy and to oversee administration. And it's already in the law. We don't need to fool with it and put it in here. I think we're wasting our time even talking about it.
Probably right. But I think it works as it is. It works very well.
The law is clear. We don't need to fool with restating it in our bylaws. We can run 30 or 40 more pages if you want to fool with it long enough, but we're just wasting time and money.
Yeah, I mean, there's sometimes, though, I'll just say that these documents help the public understand our role. So it's not just about educating us, although that helps when it's in an orientation packet, when you're a new board member. But I hear you. I mean, we can't do anything more or less than what's in the law. My concern is the opposite, that there'll be some kind of suggestion that we don't have authority to take action when we need to, when in fact the statute says that, like I said, we are the ones responsible for what happens to the district. So.
I have one additional thought that I forgot to bring up on page 5. That specifies that during executive sessions, there's no final decision. We all know that. That's in the law.
Yep.
But I don't think we should be fooling with it in the first place, the statute. But if we're going to, we should specify also that there's nothing wrong with straw votes. Boards get hung up on that sometimes. They don't think they can do a straw vote. They can do a straw vote. It just simply is not an official vote.
So is anybody concerned that if we don't include the idea of a straw vote in there that we're limiting ourselves to not doing that? I mean,
I've been on boards where that has hung them up. They've wasted time fooling with that problem. So
I agree with you. We're not making any decisions, but you can take a survey.
It's always important during executive sessions to know how a board stands on an issue. So each board member indicating what they're leaning toward is a good idea.
And it does say the board may only discuss board members' views, but may not make any final decisions. So would you maybe constitute the straw poll vote under members' views as sufficient?
Yeah, I think
Seems
so.
like it.
I mean, we could put a parenthesis in straw poll. I mean, most people know that term, what that means.
Unofficial, non-binding poll is unofficial, non-binding polls of the board members during executive sessions are not illegal, something like that. Straw poll may not be.
May
We
not
know
everyone-
what it means.
Yeah,
but
may not.
it isn't really an official term. Like I've said, I don't think any of that should even be in the bylaws, but that's, everybody else seems to.
Well, again, you know, if it's in there and it's in an orientation package, the first time a new board member goes into an executive session, they know we can do
Just
straw
read the
straw
statute.
poll. Or take that training. Sometimes they don't get to do that training right away. So anyway, you guys want to work on a parenthetical on that? That's
Yeah.
good. Okay, I finally found the statute. It says a transportation district has full power to carry out the objectives of its formation. Nope, that's not what I'm talking about. It has to do with the actual board, so I can't find it. So I will, to be continued. I will let you know next time we have a meeting, but
I have one more question on
Go
that,
ahead.
that bit on page 2 regarding the general overseeing the operations of RVTD. I could see some value in taking that out if, like, let me know if this scenario is wacky or not. Like, let's say Denise becomes busy with some other projects in the future and we end up having a new board member. If that happens and they go, oh, look, it is within my scope to generally oversee the operations of RVTD. I can wander into whatever department I want at any time and supervise and observe and not do what we would probably consider to be the proper channel of going through the general manager to set up a meeting with a department head or something that they may be interested in seeing. Would we be protected from a board member running away with that if we removed that clause of overseeing the operations? Because I imagine that you probably don't want random board members walking in saying they're allowed to supervise at all times, right?
Those laws are really clear. We don't need to really be debating about it. The laws have been in place for centuries now.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why we're even fooling with it.
No worries. I'll admit I didn't read that law yet, so I appreciate the clarification. I take it that the rest of the board isn't concerned about someone taking that and running with it in a meaningful way. Cool. Then I'm fine with it as is.
Basically, that was what my expressed concern was. I've seen that in other boards, like Habitat for Humanity, that I was on. One of the board members seemed to feel like he should be running the whole operation. And my point was, I don't want to be part of a board that is running the operation. That's why we have staff that we pay to run things. And so that's my point of view.
so the remedy is to get your chair to call a special meeting and the board respond to that conduct. Or you get 2 other members to call a special meeting if the chair doesn't want to, and the chair is the offending party, and the board responds to that conduct.
Yeah, well, not to belabor it too much. I don't foresee that would happen, certainly not with this board.
No. Okay, we'll leave it for the future board.
The board has the intrinsic power to censor a member that violates those rules. And it doesn't have to be specified
I
here.
agree.
If there is an ORS citation with our district formation, Chair Morrow, that
Yeah, I'll get
you
it to
do
you.
find, I think it might be worthwhile for us to reference it under this section of the bylaws, just so that we're
Okay, well, we'll.
covering our bases.
Well,
Yeah.
I will get it to you. We can put it in as a red line and see if the board agrees with me that it says what I think it says and that it's appropriate there. So, yeah, sounds good. Sorry, you don't have it. Anything else?
Yes,
Dan.
sorry, there is something. Somebody, I think maybe it was Paige, mentioned that in order to satisfy the insurance carrier was part of the reason for revisiting the bylaws. Is that correct? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, that is correct. It was sort of this Pandora's box. We were asked to adopt the new legislative public meetings law, which was amended strangely in 2024 and 2025. So likely it will happen again. But in looking at what we could do, scenario one, just adopt this sort of generalized, non-conforming template that they gave us last month, which I found very quickly did not, it was not consistent with our current bylaws. Or actually take the time to revise our bylaws, which are coming on to 20 years of age. I took on the longer, more difficult path of looking at our bylaws and trying to make those more up to date. And it also being consistent with the current public meetings law. So that's what opened up this larger discussion.
With due respect, this board does not have the power to adopt the public meetings law. The legislature has done so. We're bound by it. So why are we fooling with it?
Well, because we want to get an insurance credit. For some reason, people out there think that we have to have a written document that the board is
Just-
aware of them and
Instead
required.
of giving them this, why don't we just run a copy of the statute for them? Let's go to the original source.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think that'll satisfy.
You're taking the risk of erroneously setting it out is what you're doing. In addition to wasting paper.
I think all we're doing is
You're
referencing
erroneously
it.
taking the risk of erroneously setting it out.
We're just referencing it, so if it changes, then it's still, the changes
Well,
are still applicable.
I'm not going to win this argument, so
Well,
I'll stop.
that's because it's about our insurance discount.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're with you probably. So,
But
okay.
I think you're making a really good point though too. Sorry, Tanya, we did sort of discuss this in email as about how do we refer to the public meetings law because it is sort of date stamped at the time that they adopt it. And so on page one, as of right now, and when this was sent out, it does say that it's attached as an appendix or that it's referred to. And I think we need to be more general so that for Mr. Mansfield's comment that it's not adopting only the current public meetings law, but it's making sure that we're adhering to the current and any future amendments. Because it's possible these bylaws will have a life of another 20 years and they will be amended by the legislature in that time.
Yeah, no, I thought you guys adopted that change that I had suggested, which is that we're going to conform to the meetings laws, give the statutory references, and then we can say that the board policy on meetings, is, or we should say that the current statutory limitations are attached in Appendix A. In other words, the current ones. And it's just, so it's referencing the fact that they could change. We're still bound by the law, whatever it is, whenever it is. But this way, just, we're going to attach it. If the insurance carrier thinks that we need to attach it to these bylaws, then we can attach it. And we just reference it as a point of, what is the word I'm looking for? Curiosity that these are the current ones that we're complying with. Does that make sense?
I would love some legal language that I could
Yeah, I thought
put
I
in
gave it,
here.
I did give it to you, so I'll send it over again.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
What I wasn't clear about, my concern is about liability of directors. That was brought up in the discussion. And it's my understanding that under the law and under the insurance policies that we have, directors are not liable for any actions of the RVTD, except for fraud or crime, criminal behavior. We are liable for that, and I just want to hear if something is changing to my understanding of that, because if I have additional liabilities, I want to know about it.
This public meetings law does not reverse that statute. That statute's been clear for a long time.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, unless the legislature amends it, it's going to be there.
I'll shut up too.
I'm unable to answer that question, but I think as part of our correspondence with SDAO, because I'm not exactly sure what insurance it is that we're trying to get a discount on even. So we should probably be discussing that with SDAO once Julie is back so that we can understand what specifically the insurance is.
That'd be great. Okay, anything further tonight on this? So we'll go ahead and table this for now until the next meeting.
Good idea.
No objection to that. We're moving on to presentations. Heavy stuff. Thank you, Paige.
If you can help me out.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to share your presentation.
And then I'll get,
There we go.
Good evening, Chair Morrow and board members. Debbie Wilbur, Finance Manager at RVTD. A little bit. So I plan on presenting a 5-year financial forecast, and you can go to the next slide page.
Okay. Just a second.
Okay, so I will cover assumptions and data used in projections. Revenues and benefits is number 2. Union negotiations is 3. And then 4 is financial data presentation. So you can see on this slide for now. So in order to do a projection, you've got to have a plan or an idea of what it is you are going to do in the future. So when we were talking last summer and in the fall, when we were running all the scenarios about what we could do with the levy money, we all feel that basically kind of what we had and this is not set in stone, and we can change our minds or do whatever you want to do. What we had planned to kind of cost out was longer evening services, Saturdays, and Route 30, those 3 things going back into service. Does that ring a bell to everyone? Okay. So in order to do the projections, that's what I assumed, that's what we were going to do. And so what that entails is 9 additional drivers, a part-time dispatcher, a part-time field supervisor, a general service tech, and 1 extra fueler. So just want you to know those are the assumptions I went on when I did the 5-year projection with the levy funds. And then we'll talk about some other projections here in a minute. I also want to mention that there are certain things that were unknowns at the time when the budget was adopted. There's a few things in there that we've got new information, even recently as yesterday, that will change a few things and make some differences. So I'll be covering all of that on the assumptions and data that was used in projections and the revenues and benefits, how that is going to affect all of this and the state of the union negotiations. So if we can please go to the presentation. All right, so this is the 5-year projection. Now, I have highlighted a couple things, and in the first column, which is the adopted budget, this is as we adopted it. I want to be completely 100% honest on everything. When you do when you're doing the budget process in April and May, there's no way you can 100% know what your ending fund balance is going to be. So you can get that beginning fund balance. I will say that this $6.7 million is a little bit less than we're going to have going forward, and I want to be quite frank about that. So when you see the financial statements, you won't say that you didn't know that we're going to have probably a little bit more than 6.7 million. So that's good. On the other hand, we're looking at employee benefits. Now, we've been talking with the insurance company, and unfortunately, when we did the budget, we estimated about a 15% increase. 10% of that would have been RVTD's cost, and 5% would have been the employees' cost, because they're paying 5.5% of their current insurance. So they would pay 5.5% of the increase. Unfortunately, when the insurance company came back to us and we were supposed to renew on July 1st, but we decided to extend it to 10/1 when we went with MODA, they told us that what it looks like, because our pool is small, and unfortunately the pool that's small with our only 75 employees has an average age of over 50 and a lot of major illnesses. And so our use was much higher than the amount of the premiums that we paid. And they're telling us that unless we make some changes, the health insurance is going to increase by 28%.
God.
That,
When?
it was supposed to start July 1, now it's going to start October 1st. And I can tell you this right now, we are not going to do a 28% increase. We are working on a couple different plans, and there's no way we could afford 28%. So I want to point that out because that number is underestimated. Like I said, it has a 15% increase in it, and we probably, if we're lucky, will get 20. And so in the second year of the budget, what it represents is what happens if we have to take that 28% in the first year and then 20% going forward. We feel that our health insurance is probably continually going to be in the 20% range, and 15% for us and 5% for the employees, but we don't know. We're going to try to get it as low as we can, but that's an unknown at this moment. And so Kelly was really concerned about the presentation with those high numbers, and she wanted me to mention that we're not going to go with the 20%. We're not going to go with the 28% because going forward, there's no way we could sustain that. So when you're looking at these numbers, remember that those benefit numbers are based on what we currently know is kind of happening, not on what we hope to make happen. And so in the same way that you would look at the revenues. Now we could say when we're doing the revenues, we have to project for what we are currently getting. We can't project for an increase in STIF just because we think it might happen in 2 years. We have to project for what we know is going to happen. And so it's the same thing as with the benefits. We have to project for the known now, and hopefully we can get those things to change. Does that make sense? Does anyone have a question on that? Okay. So that is one of the biggest things. And the other thing I was going to point out on this graph was that we got an estimate on the STIF revenues, and it's true. They're estimating we're going to have a little bit of an increase based on increased employment on the payroll side. So that's going up just a tiny bit, as you can see there, and we had it flat in the last presentation, but so that's going up just a tiny bit. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit, and every little bit helps. And so, let's see. The other thing I want to say is that we still have some unknowns. We have the issue with the union. We do not have a union contract. And unfortunately, what the union is doing, they're trying to get as much money as they can and benefits for their employees as they can, regardless of the situation that RVTD is in. And so they would not settle the contract. And once they heard about the insurance thing, they said they're not settling the contract until we get the insurance figured out. So we still don't have a signed contract with the union, so that's an unknown. We don't know what's going to happen there. So let's look at this table. As you can see, we do pretty good the first 4 years, and then in the 5th year, we will hit that cliff again. And remember that is based on the current situation with the health insurance costs and no revenues increasing. And it's still not bad. I mean, we can make it till year 5 when it's time to go out for the levy again. And maybe we can get more money if we don't get STIF money, or maybe something, or maybe we get the health insurance fixed and the accumulated savings will make that 5th year not so bad. But this is what we always knew. We always knew that in year 5, if we had not got some additional funding, either from STIF or some other source, that we would be hitting this cliff. And it has changed by a little bit, but it's still there. It was closer to 6 million before, and with some adjustments we made, we got it down to 3 million. And so, next screen, please. Unless anybody has any questions on this screen. Yes, Dan.
What's the name of the insurance company that was raising our rates by 28%?
We have MODA for the health insurance, and it's MODA. MODA.
MODA.
And that's through Hub. Hub is our broker. So our experience rating was very high. We used a lot of services. Unfortunately, we are going for we're trying a couple different things. We've been having a lot of meetings. Unfortunately, it's all super complicated. And then with the union negotiations going on right now, it makes it even more complicated. And there's no way that RVTD can absorb the increase. So right now, we're paying 94.5%, and the employees are paying 5.5% of the cost of the health insurance. Now, that is going to have to change, because 5.5% is low compared to what most governmental entities charge their employees for insurance. And if we're going to be facing, 15 to 20% increases, which we cannot afford, and anything we do is going to make that cliff sooner and sooner, and more money. And so we're trying to do something. It's a difficult thing because everyone is facing the same problem, and we're stuck with the union. The union is going to be a problem in the health insurance. I don't know how we're going to reconcile that. Any other questions about this form? I don't think it's a big surprise. It's close to what you saw before. Unfortunately, we don't have some extra stiff revenue to talk about, or, an increase in the stiff or anything like that.
Is MODA a part of a larger company, a different company? I've never heard that before.
They are one of the main ones for the Valley. The Valley essentially only has a couple now. They have Regents, MODA, and then there was 3 others they were trying to sell us, which we can't even get here. So we're working on an idea. It's kind of something new, but I can't talk about it yet because it's not really been ironed out. And we're hoping that we can get something that's less money without having to lower the quality of the health insurance too much. But our only choice may be to offer less, so everybody can have insurance and we can stay operating. We don't have to cut service.
But go ahead, can I just?
I got a slide.
That's a lot of doom and gloom, and it does look like that. What this does show, though, is this shows that the model that Debbie, or the option that Debbie picked just to run, and it doesn't mean that the board has to adopt that option, the Saturdays and later weeknights, but she had to pick one option. And there ended up really only being 2 options, because 2 of those options were more money than we had. So she picked this option. And what this option shows is that even with the cost escalation that we're estimating and the revenue escalation, which is smaller, we can operate that service if nothing else changes, right? Nothing else, because, nothing is certain when you do a 5-year projection. In 2019, no one would have guessed what it looked like in 2024. So what this shows is that we can operate then in 2030, 2031. We will have to cut before then if nothing were to change, but then we have an opportunity for another levy. Maybe we look at something, maybe the district looks at something that is different than 13 cents or more than 13 cents or something like that, or there may be a state solution or something. But the good news is, with this projection, it looks like the district can operate those expanded services that we talked to the public about during the levy process until, 2029, when we'll have to start thinking about making some cuts.
So 4 years, we have 4 years before we have to cut if we don't get it changed. But if we can lower the insurance, that's going to make a big difference over 4 years. You know, if you can get it down 10% of that, you're going to make up a majority of that money. I'm not trying to be doom and gloom. I'm just, because I'm
No,
a mathematician, I'm just black and white. It's numbers, but I don't mean to be. Can we have the next slide, please? I know I do that sometimes.
No, it's
So here's what it kind of looks graphically. And the reason we start out with good revenues exceeding expenses is because we have that little nest egg we managed to squirrel away. We have 6.7 million, maybe a little bit more money, and we'll be spending our reserves, of course. And by the time we get to 2930, we won't have any reserves left.
2930, hold on though, before you leave there. You're still showing a beginning fund balance of 4 million.
Look at the end of the year.
Ending, okay, yeah, one, okay.
Huh?
You're gonna go in with one, yeah, okay.
And so it kind of runs out there.
Yeah.
All right. So any questions on this graph? Yes,
Deb,
Dan.
These projections are based on doing better with the insurance.
Nope.
These are based on the 28% increase.
28% in the first year and 20% in the years after. But we are going to get that changed. But I am showing you the factual kind of reality we are sitting at right now. And like I said, Kelly wanted me to stress, and I agree, that we are not going to accept that. We are going to make it change. But, I can't present you figures. Let's saying we're going to get extra stiff money, so I'm going to throw it in there to make the projection look better, or we're going to, reduce some other costs that we can't guarantee we're going to do. So it's just pretty much what we expect. And so the next graph will show you what I'm talking about. Can you go to the next page? So this is our increase in health insurance costs over the course of time. And you can see the last 2 years, before this, we don't have 25, 26 on here. It's not really comparable because we went from, 130 employees to 75 and a whole new plan. But you can see even in the last 2 years, we had 23% and 17% increase. So, 20% is probably about where we're going to end up, but not 28 like they're telling us for this year. And our thing about this year is we are good. Luckily, we're working on it. That's about all we can say. And I have confidence we'll get something figured out. And then those numbers will look much better come October or September when we do another presentation for what we're actually going to do with the levy money. I hope we have it figured out by then, and I think we will. And Kelly's been working super hard with the insurance company, and everybody has. It's very difficult. There's not a whole lot of options here in the Valley anymore, and we're like I said, we're trying to do something new. But you can see, historically speaking, over since 2017, we've had some increases, and the only reason the increases are low in 2021 and 21-22 was COVID, and we just didn't have high increase during that period, and we had lower employment. So a lot of people. Does that make sense?
It's extremely complicated, and I know you guys are working on it, but I guess I would wonder if there's a way of increasing our pool by memorandum of agreement with some other agencies, and legally we can do that, and whether our problem is that we only have 2 insurance carriers down here or not, but yeah.
Well, as far as going in a pool with like the city or the county, they don't want us.
I imagine they don't.
Because of our experience rating is too high. But there's a thing called ICHR. It's ICHR, I think. And what it is it's a system where they offer you to be in a bigger pool, and what it has is multiple choices of insurance plans, And then they figure out your cost for each employee and how much you would contribute, how much they contribute. But they're putting you in a larger pool, and they're saying they can save us money. But like, so say you don't really want this Cadillac plan, you would rather pick this one as an employee that gives you less and costs you less money out of your pocket. So you would be able to pick this. And I want my Cadillac plan because I want tons of coverage, and I don't care about picking more, paying more money. I can pick this. So that's what we're looking at, and it's like exactly what you're talking about. And we're still getting into the beginning of it, and it's not a common thing in the state of Oregon at this time. And so, they're saying they can save us money, and when I believe they can save us money, then I'll be bringing. When
You're only paying 5.5, you're going to be going for that Cadillac plan the whole time, aren't you? Right. Sorry.
Well, in our current health insurance, we have two plans,
Okay.
right? The lower plan, they pay 5.5, but if they want the upgraded plan,
Okay.
they have to pay the difference in the premium between this one and this one, plus their 5% on the original premium. So they're paying for I'm paying like I bought the higher plan, but I'm paying that difference. So we're not absorbing the cost for that Cadillac plan versus the regular plan currently.
So just on the health insurance piece, to speak to what Dan asked, I saw an article, I think it was in the Oregonian, and it was talking about healthcare in Oregon. In Oregon right now, they're saying the average increase is about 20%. And the highest company, the company that's increasing the highest is actually MODA, which is who we have now. Right now, with Providence stopping health insurance, there really are only two entities down here that will provide health insurance or a health insurance broker for us. It's MODA and Regents Blue Cross. Both are going up, and like Debbie said, unfortunately, we looked at going into a different pool. We looked at there's actually a pool in Bend that we looked at going into last year. But they looked at our experience and they said no. So our experience, just to put this into perspective, this year our experience is 180%, meaning if we paid them $100 to insure all of our employees, they spent $180 out in claims. So you can imagine when we have that kind of, when we're pooled, and we're a very small pool now, that is one of the reasons that our health insurance is going up. This other plan that we are asked to look at is almost like an individual plan, and all of us as individuals go into a different pool. And because we go into a different pool, we're not just our tiny pool. And that is where the savings comes in. But we have to look at it and see, and there's a lot of talk about it, and we're still trying to figure out this. But it doesn't make me feel any better that we're not alone. Sometimes I always feel better like, oh, we're not alone in this. Other people are experiencing this thing. It doesn't make me feel a lot better, but we aren't. This is what's happening in Oregon. And it may be happening in other places in the country, but here it is. Health insurance is going up exponentially. So we're going to try to address that. But that's one of the factors that when I'm going to hand out Debbie's presentation so you all have it. It's one of the probably the most volatile and unknown factors of our expenditures that we have. I mean, it makes fuel look like nothing. It makes, you know what I mean? So we're highlighting it because it's a volatile and high number that as it gets more expensive, it just gets, if you're paying an additional 28% this year, and then next year you're paying an additional 20% on that 28%, it goes up exponentially.
Yes.
Compounds. So I just wanted to let you know why we've highlighted that, and that we're working on it.
And unfortunately, that's one of the things that we don't have 100% total control over the health insurance. We're subject to the market, but we're also subject to a union contract. We have to get them to agree to whatever it is we do. And right now, that getting them to agree is,
But we don't know. We're just going to say we don't know.
we don't know.
We're still under negotiations.
Any more questions? It'll be all right. I think that we'll get this figured out, the health insurance, one way or another, and and down the road, maybe we'll get some additional funding or, we'll fix the costs some way and we'll just keep rolling because that's what we do.
I'm just going to throw out that, the state is on plan to potentially adopt a universal pay situation in the next 3 or 4, well, adopt it and it gets implemented in the next 4 years or so. So that doesn't mean that employers aren't going to be paying something, but just so that we all know that there may be a potential solution to this problem out there. This legislative session, they're going to be getting a report from the governance board about what that might look like and how it might go. So,
Is that health insurance or?
yes.
Oh,
Universal health care for Oregonians. And yes, employers will still be paying in, but we're all going to be covered.
and you'll be in one pool, everyone will be in one pool, and so it should be cheaper.
Yep.
That sounds awesome. I didn't
So-
know about that. That would be great.
Yep.
So I just want to say, we're going to make it just one step at a time. And so,
Well, we knew we were going to be off the cliff in 5 years if we put those services back. So, yeah.
but we need to do it. We promised we would do it, so we need to do it.
Okay, we are going to have Nick present this fun stuff about our fleet. It is. I love it.
All right, good afternoon, Chair and board members. My name is Nick Black. I am RVTD's Fleet and Facilities Maintenance Manager. Today, I just wanted to provide an overview with this presentation of what the maintenance department actually does, a little bit about our fleet, some of the challenges we've had over the last few years, especially over the last year, and kind of go into what we're looking at in the future as far as fuel types and things of that nature, some newer technologies we're exploring and hope to adopt someday. Here's just a quick little agenda, and everybody has their copies of the presentation. Okay, great. And so feel free to stop me anytime and ask any questions, or wait to the end. It's up to you. So, there may be some misconceptions of what the maintenance department actually does. We do more than just work on buses. So we've got a team of 9 people, 9 dedicated staff, including mechanics, facilities, maintenance workers, dealers, procurement. So we handle all the vehicle maintenance, including all the big buses, all the vans, all our staff cars, all our facilities, and all our buildings. So we typically maintain, we do our own landscaping, a lot of our own plumbing, electrical. So we try to keep it as in-house as possible to reduce costs, basically. A lot of our guys have had electrical training, plumbing training. There's a lot we can do. So currently, our fleet has 31 compressed natural gas CNG buses, 2 straight diesel buses, and 6 diesel electric hybrids. And our paratransit fleet makes up 21 gasoline vans. So you probably asked yourself once or twice, how long does a bus actually last RVTD? So according to the FTA, a bus needs to last us 12 years or 500,000 miles. Seems like a lot of miles, which it is, but these buses aren't built like your car. They're very stout, very durable. We try very hard to maintain them. So when that 12-year, 500,000 miles actually hits a vehicle, the bus is showing its age, right? It's already had 1 transmission, it's already had 1 engine, multiple sets of brakes, suspension rebuilt, but it's still a good bus. But at that 12-year mark is when we start looking at grant replacement, right? So by the time we realize that, this bus is due for replacement, Paige finds us a good grant. She always gets the money.
She does.
And, and that's about a 2-year cycle from applying for the grant to ordering the bus to, actually taking delivery, commissioning, and putting it out on the road to serve the public. So by that time, the bus could be 14, 15 years old, have 7, sometimes higher miles on it. And it's at that point we want to look at getting it off the road. It's pretty old by then. The paratransit vans, on the other hand, they're just your typical Ford Transit van with a wheelchair lift and some modifications. At 4 years or 100,000 miles, that's when those things are pretty much worn out. They've already had a transmission, the engine's starting to get tired. But with those, funding sometimes not quite as easy as a fixed route bus. I would say the majority of our fleet has been purchased by general fund money. But moving forward, as we start to explore alternative fuels like electricity and propane and maybe CNG in the future, the opportunities to get grant funding, it is definitely opened up for us. And you probably ask yourself too, I wonder how much a bus costs as you see it drive down the road. So the last CNG bus we purchased in 2023, it cost the district $685,000. The last diesel hybrid bus we bought was just a touch over $1 million a piece. And then the last van we purchased in 2025 was $117,000. So this next slide is kind of looking into the future of what our replacement cycles look like. So on the left, you can see the fixed route fleet. These are when the bus is going to reach its 12-year life cycle, and it's going to be at or above 500,000 miles by then. So, 5 buses in 2027, 4 buses in 2029. But if you go all the way to 2031, we have 15 buses coming due. And a lot of those were back in 2018. We started doing some really heavy expansion. We had to buy all these expansion vehicles to serve our satellite routes. So we had a lot then. Now, does this mean that we need to replace all 5 buses in 2027 or all 15 in 2031? No, not necessarily. It depends on our service level, what the needs of the district. Also, if we can get a grant to replace them, do we have the money to, supply the match?
Quick question. You guys' timeline of 2031, for instance, is that when they're going to be eligible? So that's when we start the 2-year process to replace.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be replaced by 2031. Okay.
That's correct. Yeah, that's when.
Okay.
Now we can, and we have done this in the past, you can apply for a grant in anticipation of a bus coming up.
Okay, but you have to wait for that actual.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, you can't speed the process, but typically we kind of just wait till, when they're due.
Okay.
And on the right-hand column, you can see the paratransit vans.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no
ahead.
worries. One question for you. For the 10 vans in this year that are coming to the end of their useful life, is the replacement of those factored into the budget projections that we just viewed?
It is, yes.
Okay.
So those 10 vans are, and I'll cover this here actually in another slide, but those 10 vans are actually, we were awarded a grant. Those 10 vans are going to be replaced with the electric van project we're working on, which they'll probably be ordered sometime around January, February of next year.
So while we're there, so I can put it in comparison, what's the cost of one of those vans? Do you know?
Of the electric vans?
Yeah, the ones that are
They
coming.
were about 10, I think they're about, by the time we order them, probably about 135,000 a piece.
135,
Yeah.
so about 15, 17 more than,
It's about a $10,000 premium over a gasoline van.
okay.
Which is a lot less than it was when we started this project. It was about a $50,000 increase. So
Okay.
Do they have a longer life cycle? It's pretty short.
yeah,
Yeah, 4 is not long.
in some ways, yes. We're not going to have to, well, let me put it this way. Even if we ran them for 4 years or 5 years, typically run a van 5 or 6, the van itself is going to be pretty worn out, but we're not going to have to invest in replacement transmissions or replacement engines. So even though the van itself may not last as long, or the van may not last any longer, the cost of ownership for the district is going to be significantly less. And then, so the FTA grants the first 10. By 2029, maybe through 2031, we were also awarded a CDS funding for the second phase of the electric van project. And that's going to replace all those vans as well.
And all of that is in the budget already, so it's all been accounted for, the match on both of them.
So like, is it 17?
What's
Is
that?
that right? Does that, just gets us a 10?
First one gets us the 10.
Second one gets
So the FTA grant gets us 10, maybe 11 vans in the whole entire
Okay.
charging network. And the CDS is going to fund 10, 11 vans and the additional chargers that are required for those 10.
Okay.
Nick? A little confused about, what's the grant that you're talking about? You said CVS or CV?
Congressional direct spending. So Paige applied for that, probably 3 years ago. It's been a while. And it was stalled in Congress and it got slipped into an agricultural bill and was passed. We found that out probably 4 or 5 months ago. And so we're kind of scrambling to figure out at the last minute, okay, this project's big. It's actually a massive project for RVTD. How we're going to do it. I think we've got it figured out.
And this is for hybrid vans or
Fully electric.
fully electric
Yep.
vans?
So once both phase 1 and 2, the FTA grant and the CDS funding are executed and POs are written, basically our entire paratransit fleet is going to be electric at that point. There'll be a few renewable propane vans floating around, but it's going to be a pretty large electric fleet. But I feel, and I think some other staff feel, that it's going to be extremely successful in that application, very successful, and save the district a huge amount of money a year in gasoline.
So where do you procure all these electric vans?
So we can buy them either on the state of Oregon competitive procurement grant or through the state of Washington's. Either way, usually we just kind of bounce back and forth, whoever's the cheapest. So state contract purchase, and we have our choice of about 3 or 4 van dealers that we typically deal with to buy them from. But they will be Ford Transit platforms.
So who's the manufacturer?
Ford.
Ford?
Yep. So the electric portion of it is all OEM. So, for the duration of our ownership, the hybrid portion is going to be under a factory warranty. So we never have to touch it. We never have to invest funds in maintaining them. Which is pretty nice, actually. And then what happens is, so we write a PO for 10 vans. That goes to the van dealership. And then they buy 10 vans from another Ford dealership because they don't sell just vans. They sell upfitted vehicles. Then those vans go to an upfitter in Northern California. They put in the wheelchair lift and the seats and all the special components that are required that we have to have. And then they go back to the dealership and then they get driven to us and we put them in service. So I want to talk a little bit about our current utilization. So right now we're using approximately 19 buses to support our fixed route operation and 21 paratransit vans. Prior to the service cut we did in September, we were using 33 buses in active service, and we actually had a total fleet of 47 buses. So what we had to do, we placed all the 20 additional buses in what's called a contingency fleet. So a contingency fleet is our buses that aren't used in normal active service, right? But they're still maintained as if they are, so different service intervals in anticipation that, we may need those someday. So the 20 buses have been sitting in the yard. They haven't been used on active service. And within those are 11 30-foot CNG buses. So those were purchased starting about 2018, 2019 to support the expansion we were doing for all the satellite routes. And unfortunately, with that service cut, all but one of those 30-foot buses are really not needed. They're too small to use on any of our core routes, such as the 10 and 60, because they just don't really hold as many people. So we're kind of actively trying to figure out what we're going to do with those in the future. So this is a picture I took in the yard the other day. These are all our contingency fleet buses. You'll see on the left, those are our 35-foot buses. And then on the right, you'll see some of the 30-foot buses that are sitting around. And one challenge that we are having, the term is, it's called lot rot. And it's kind of a funny term. Yeah. Not an official term, but it's a transit thing. So
It's a trendy thing.
it's a
yeah.
transit.
It's descriptive.
So these buses get started up weekly and they're on a 90-day preventative maintenance schedule. So the mechanics will go out, start them up, drive them to the shop, look them over, check the tires, the brakes, wheel seals, pretty much everything to make sure it's safe to go on the road. And then it gets taken on a road test. But one thing we're kind of seeing is kind of to elaborate on the lot rot is, we're seeing issues like battery failures. Typically a set of batteries will last in a bus 2 years. But with these only being started, not driven very much, the batteries have mostly all failed in them. And we're starting to see wheel seal issues, engine leaks, small fuel leaks. Just because, a heavy duty vehicle like a bus really needs to be driven a lot. It needs to be out there, warmed up, driven hard, just to keep the oil moving and the seals soft and things of that nature. So over the last 11 months, we're really starting to see an issue with that. I think typically a bus can sit idle in a contingency fleet for 2 to 3 years. And at that point, you're going to see very significant costs to get that bus back up to like a daily route ready condition.
Before we go forward, and sorry if you've already got it in here, but how many, if any, because they're smaller, are we bringing on with the new service, the expanded service?
2 additional buses.
Only 2.
Mhm.
And the 2 of the 35s?
They're all going to be 35-foot buses. It may be, I think I actually heard that, well, actually in the meeting this morning, it may be a second 3-foot.
Okay.
It'd be 1 30-foot and 1 35-foot bus,
So we're only adding 2
Yeah.
back onto
Yep.
the road. Okay.
leaving 18 to contingency left.
Okay.
And, it does consume, quite a bit of labor and shop capacity and additional parts like, batteries of that nature if we had to reinvest in them.
Nick, when you're talking about batteries, you're talking about for the hybrid vehicle,
Just the starter batteries.
regular.
Yeah, just the regular batteries. These are all, none of these buses are hybrids. They're all either diesel or CNG. So, but each one has 4 batteries at about $150 a piece. But we're going to continue, the maintenance on them. We're going to continue, just keeping them road ready until a time comes where we can make a decision to either put it back in service or what we're going to do with them, basically. So some kind of exciting stuff. So
Hey, Nick,
Yes.
Katrina had her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Katrina, go ahead.
No worries. It's one of the hazards of being the Zoom attendee. I just wanted to ask, are there any contingencies that, like, when do we deploy a contingency fleet? I'm trying to understand what they're hanging out for.
So the contingency fleet, it's actually it's a term defined by the FTA as a bus that, let me just add, so typically an agency has a contingency fleet from buses that have been replaced and they'll hold on to X amount of them for a year, maybe 2 years. And they keep those in case the active fleet has like a major recall, like a safety defect that puts a large number of them down. They can legally be used for evacuations and other emergencies in the community, things of that nature. But you don't put them back into active service. We have a kind of a unique situation because, these are all newer buses. They're all within their useful life. They have an extremely high value still, both, selling value and depreciated value on the books. So we're in a really unique situation with that. And we're kind of navigating with the FTA that what our options are going to be with these. We don't really know yet. We can't sell them. Well, we can sell them with the FTA's permission, but the district can't retain the funds. All those funds would have to go back to the FTA minus our 20% that we put into them out of general fund. So it's kind of been a long process. So once we do figure out what we can do with them, and we're also waiting to see what happens with the federal transportation bill this October, which there's a section in there that, if passed, would allow the district to retain all the funds to reinvest in future capital asset purchases. So we're really waiting for that one to see what happens there. So nothing will be determined until October, and we'll definitely keep the board knowledgeable on what's going on.
Sounds good. And thank you for expanding because, yeah, just as somebody who is still a pretty new board member and knows nothing about fleets, wanted to kind of expand on what their role was. So appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
One question about the FTA saying that we can't sell them without being able to keep the money.
Mm.
Would that also apply if we say leased them for an amount of years?
It would not.
Okay, good to know.
As we learned recently, we would actually, I think if let's say we didn't need this building, right? We could sell it, but the money goes back to the feds. If we leased it, we get to retain every dollar of that lease money for forever, basically, until we decide at some point to sell the building. I think it would apply to vehicles too.
We posed the question and have had no response on the lease issue.
Of the vans or the rolling stock.
I want to
Yeah.
reiterate that question again. I had to do it twice with the buildings, so try to get an answer on that.
Mm-hmm. But it is an assumption, but I would assume that the FTA would treat it the same, but I could be wrong.
Who would we have who could lease them?
We talked to Chariots in Salem, and they sent about 4 or 5 of their staff on site to inspect them. And they had some interest. They had interest in purchasing them. They had some interest in leasing them. The kind of the unique thing about it is most of these are CNG buses, and there's very few agencies that actually have their own CNG compressor or the ability to even get fuel from somebody else.
They don't, right?
No, they don't. There's a few, but 3 in Oregon. But there's the Port of Portland. They operate a large fleet of buses that have CNG. They might have interest. I think if we actively started looking, we'd probably find somebody to lease them. And basically what it would look like is we would lease them to the agency at the annual cost of the depreciated value of them. So for them, it would be much cheaper than buying a brand new bus and running it for 12 years. So, there would be some benefits to it. And these are all fairly new, within 5 or 6 years old, all under 200,000 miles. They're pretty nice vehicles, really. So kind of looking at, the current fuels that we use to run our fleet and, looking forward into the future fuels that we're, would like to do, that we're actively planning on doing, or that is actually getting ready to kick off next week. So currently we run our fleet 31 CNG buses. And we're in a program, what's called an RNG offset credit. So for every gallon of CNG that we put into our vehicles, we receive a credit of 40 cents a gallon. And what that is there's some entities in Southern California that, I don't know, Debbie, how would you explain that? You probably do a better job than I would.
We went down to San Diego, Nick and I, with some people, and we looked at what they were doing. This was way back in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we talked to many of the providers, and how it works is we're getting a rebate from US Gain for the amount of equivalent gas equivalent gallons. And we're not technically getting RNG in our pipeline, but down there, they are loading the RNG in the pipeline. And so we're essentially getting credit for using RNG, because when we buy it, they load it and we get the credit, and it's a lot of money. When we were full service, we were getting like $13,000 a month rebate from them for this. A lot of money. It's a little bit, it's smaller now, but we're also going out in RFP because we heard that we might be able to get more.
Mm-hmm. And what that means for our fuel costs, for example, is with that 40 cents a gallon that we receive, it takes our natural gas. Now our natural gas costs down to 55 cents a gallon. So, and that's equating all the power it takes to power the compressors, all the maintenance. That's the all said and done cost to fuel our fleet. It's incredibly cheap fuel. So I mentioned this at the last board meeting, but we're going to be running 3 of our paratransit vans on a product called renewable propane. That actually kicks off next week. We're pretty excited about it. So we're going to have an on-site 500-gallon fuel tank at our main yard, and 3 vans will be receiving the tanks and everything that's required to operate that. One of the benefits, besides it's a very clean fuel, is just the cost. So this is actually a state contract fuel that we're spending. It's $80 over bulk propane cost, which equates to about $2.30 a gallon. So certain times that could be a couple, $2.50 cheaper than what we're paying for gasoline. So it's really going to save the district a considerable amount of money annual. We're trying 3, and if it proves successful, we'll see if we can figure out a way to get some more funding and upfit this on more vans.
That's vans.
Vans, yeah. And then, of course, going back to the CNG, RNG topic, as some may know, Dry Creek landfill is actually, they're working with the Vista, they're bringing an actual pipeline from Dry Creek landfill off of 140 to the corner of Coker Butte and Clear Lake Avenue. So they're actually going to be bringing 600 PSI of real raw natural gas down into Medford. And the possibility exists for actually the district to put a pipeline and directly feed pure RNG gas right into our facility and run our fuel on it, which I think is fantastic. I'm a big supporter of RNG. It's not cheap, though. The pipeline is unfortunately about $2 million to utilize. And the other issue we're running into is the state of Oregon has a RNG tariff that would take our cost if we did it from 55 cents a gallon to about $5 a gallon. So there's a couple hurdles we're working on. But I think someday in the future, I think it's a great possibility we could do that.
So their pipeline is going to the station though, right?
So they're actually bringing it, right now they're bringing it to Coker Butte and Clear Lake Avenue.
And that's it.
And that's it. Right now they're tying it into the Vista line.
They're just, if it's though.
Yep.
They're not going to the CNG station.
No, not yet, unfortunately. But the option does exist in the future. We could tap into that and bring a pipeline directly to us.
And that's what you're talking about, $2 million cost.
Yep.
But then there's a tariff.
There's the tariff.
That's a state sheriff?
Yeah, the Oregon Weights and Commissions put that tariff out. And it's a pretty substantial one too.
Yep.
What are they doing?
And they're very specific that public entities are not exempt from it.
But we can change that.
We could change that. That's one major hurdle over
Yep.
time.
Needs to
Mhm.
be.
So
We've been talking about this for a long time,
we have,
hoping that it might come along, and I didn't know it was that close.
yeah,
Is the construction underway for the pipeline?
it is. Yeah, I don't have the exact date that they're going to be complete, but it's on its way. It's on its way there. If you drive down Antelope Road, you'll see all the pipes in a big field there for the project.
Do you know what percentage is going to be the RNG molecule in that pipeline? Just curious.
100%.
100%?
Percent.
Okay.
Now, once it gets into the Vista line, it's of course going to be, less, but they're
Right.
telling me that it.
Okay, the one from Dry Creek.
Yeah, so once it enters the Vista pipeline, it
Yeah.
would be approximately 20%, give or take where you're at in
Okay,
the pipeline.
yeah, it's about all they can do, I think.
Yeah, because it's actually a huge amount of fuel that they're going to be pushing
Yep.
through, surprisingly.
So who benefits from that? Dry Creek? They get the revenues from,
Basically, yeah.
and who's buying it besides us? Or we might be buying it.
It would be,
Just-
that's a good question. It would be a Vista buying it.
Oh,
Yeah.
for their pipeline.
Mhm. Yeah, so they're going to be paying Dry Creek for their gas. So yeah, Dry Creek is benefiting. And what kind of drove this is, Rogue Disposal was bought out by a huge corporation called Waste Connections a few years ago. And after that happened is when the real push to get this going, because this has been a topic for, I think, since like 15 years since I've kind of been doing this. And yeah, it's pretty exciting, really exciting.
Yeah.
And so you maybe ask yourself, what is Nick talking about? Renewable fuels? I've never heard of that. So what renewable fuels are chemically identical man-made fuels to their fossil fuel counterpart. In the case of renewable diesel, it's made off of common feedstock, like used cooking oil, soybean oil, canola oil, animal fats, and other things of that nature. You take that and you have biodiesel. But what differs this is actually the chemical process to create a identical product to diesel. Basically, it's heated up very high. The hydrogen is added to it, and it takes that and turns it to basically diesel fuel. It has another couple processes to turn it into a chemically identical product. What that means versus biodiesel is you don't have to make any vehicle changes to run renewable diesel. It can go in the exact same tanks that you had your traditional diesel in. Zero facility changes at all. And it's a little cheaper than regular diesel too. So where renewable propane comes into factor is during the heating up process is when the renewable propane is actually generated from that manufacturing of it. And that's captured and then cleaned. And that's our renewable propane. So everything's a man-made, very green product.
So you have that delivered to tanks here?
Yep. We buy it out of Portland from a company called Nesty. And it's really been great for us so far. We've been running it for probably about 4 or 5 years.
Nick, how are you dealing with the temperature issues of using renewable diesel?
It actually has not, it hasn't been a factor for us.
Really?
I should note, so renewable diesel has a little bit higher of a freezing value than, if diesel freezes at -20, renewable diesel might freeze at -10. But of course, we don't have to deal with that here, those temperatures typically. But yeah, we've never had an issue at all. I should also note that renewable diesel doesn't actually gel like regular diesel does. So you don't have to worry about that when you kind of get down to the teens in the temperature. This slide here, I kind of went over a lot of this, but just kind of talking about
Chemistry question. Why doesn't it gel? Yeah.
That's a really good question. I can follow up with you. I just know it doesn't. Yeah.
Okay. No, just chemistry brain was activated. Like, what?
Yeah.
That's cool. I want to know why.
I mean, let me look. I brought a cheat sheet because I knew somebody was going to ask me a technical question like that. Let me see if it's on here.
If it's on there, cool. If not, happy to follow up later. I'm just like delighted to know that it has these two variant properties, and I'm curious about why.
Yeah, I will follow up, but I honestly don't have an answer. But I can tell you.
No worries.
Yep.
That's cool. Okay. Back to your cool presentation.
Yeah, right. But I agree with that. That's a change because I used to run biodiesel in my pickup, and it was always a problem. Things really slowed down when it got below 30.
Yeah, I think Paige knows a little bit about that too with her old, what was it, Rabbit diesel? But yeah, it's a really interesting product, and I'd encourage everybody here to kind of look into it and the benefits of using fuel. And they actually sell it at Pacific price too. So if you have like a diesel vehicle, you can go fill it up with that and save a little money as well. So I kind of wanted to touch on our diesel electric hybrid fleet. So back in March of 2023, RVTD's board approved the purchase of 6 diesel electric hybrids through FTA grant. We ordered them, took delivery. To be honest, our experience with them has been a little bit rough, really rough at the beginning. I would say that at any point we only had 2 of the 6 operational, and the warranty company was here a lot doing repairs. Over the last, not quite 2 years, to keep the 6 buses operational, and luckily this is under warranty, so we actually didn't have to burden this cost, was $420,000 in hybrid, just hybrid specific repairs to them. And we actually had another one breakdown last night. Unfortunately, that's going to be another $60,000 or $70,000 repair. To kind of put it in perspective, a hybrid battery, which we had one fail about 2 months ago, under warranty was $180,000 repair. We've had 4 dual traction converters fail, which that's what converts the high voltage battery into from DC to AC to actually run the traction motor that moves the bus forward, and some other miscellaneous repairs totaling that $420,000. These were when we purchased these, Allison, the manufacturer of the hybrid system, had phased out their old system, the same system that had been operating since 2008, which we had quite a few of those at the time, and they were very bulletproof. So it's been difficult to deal with this. And come this November, all 6 buses dropped their warranty. So any future failures are going to be have to be bared by RVTD, unfortunately. We do have money in the budget. We put $150,000 in the 26-27 budget to cover this, but as you can see from some of these costs, it could be wiped out pretty quickly.
When does it end? I didn't catch
This
Say
coming
this
November.
November.
Yep, this November. And this money is in addition to just the normal vehicle maintenance costs like brakes and airbags and, you know, all the other stuff that likes to break that we fix. You know, it's one of the reasons I'm kind of bringing this up is, you know, when the time comes that we do look at a vehicle purchase, you know, for the 2027, that, you know, we explore some other technology types to just kind of help lessen the burden in the future for the district as far as maintenance costs. But with that said, our maintenance staff is fully trained up on maintaining these. So we will get them through their 12-year, 500,000-mile service life. They've been through many trainings, and we have another big one coming up in probably September. It's a week-long training just to get them familiarized again with them as they kind of exit their warranty period. One thing we're planning on doing is once they do exit their warranty period this November, we're going to reduce the amount of usage we're going to put on them. Right now, they're our main buses, right? They're out there every day, all day long. We're going to kind of limit them to maybe a day or two a week, just to try to help reduce some of the maintenance costs, but then also save some money on fuel because diesel is quite expensive right now.
Would that mean you might bring more of the contingency, another one of the contingency back in, or?
It would be, yeah.
Okay.
It would be. So I kind of touched on this earlier, but electrifying our paratransit fleet. So right now that fleet is 21 vehicles made up entirely of gasoline. Next week, soon to be 3 propane, renewable propane vans. But with these 2 funding sources, it's essentially going to electrify our entire fleet. It'll significantly modernize the fleet because as we saw in a few pages back, the fleet's getting pretty old. We have 10 that are past their replacement cycle right now. And it will significantly reduce our operating costs. You know, I'm told that a set of brakes on an electric van lasts 4 or 5 times as long as a set on a gasoline van because you have that really regenerative braking that takes most of the burden away from the brake pads.
Yep. Regenerative. Yep.
Yep.
When do we get them?
Well, we can order the first batch, I think, right around this coming January or February. And it's about a 5-month lead time.
2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to wait. I bet you within a year, like a year from now, would be a pretty realistic thing to see them operational.
Are we going to end up in a problem by replacing so many at once, and then we have to get down the road and we aren't staggering it in?
That would, yeah, we are kind of setting ourselves up for that. But you know, when you don't have to replace them all at once, you know, if we were, let's say we applied for a grant one year to replace 6 or 7 of them. And then, you know, over the next 3 years, you know, we can try to break up that into 2 or 3 groups to where it's a little more manageable for replacement cycles and the general fund. One thing about these is they claim they have 110 to 120 mile range, which is pretty impressive for a very large electric van. Our fleet, given 1 or 2 random occurrences, typically going to run 70, maybe 80 miles a day. So these are perfect fit for that fleet type. Our goal is to be able to have these vans out all day running around and never actually have to go back to the yard to recharge or grab a freshly charged van. There's gonna be times that doesn't work and they will have to, but they're very well suited for this service type.
Will you have charging at the station here? downtown?
It's possible. Actually, Kelly and I were just chatting about that. We may, because what we're going to have to do is to make this really successful is limit the amount of idling time that these vans do. Because right now, if they're waiting for their next dispatch ride or the driver's on lunch or something like that, they'll just sit in a parking lot. And, of course, they have to have the van running for AC or heat. If we can figure out a model to stop that or significantly reduce it, for example, have them come to Front Street, maybe plug in their van in the parking lot, and they can go inside, have lunch. Things like that, I think, are really going to make this successful. But it's going to take a little work.
Didn't we once upon a time have a whole bunch of hybrid vans?
We did.
What happened to those? Have they all failed or?
No, we still have them.
Oh,
Yeah, we still have them.
So those count in the number that you're saying are gasoline
Yeah.
vans?
I should add, though, we purchased 6 hybrid vans. We purchased 6 vans in 2018 that we installed an aftermarket hybrid system on.
Yeah.
And then we purchased 10 more in 2020. Unfortunately, the manufacturer of the hybrid system went out of business about 4 years ago. And as components started failing, batteries, electric motors, we actually had to convert them back into straight electric or straight gasoline vehicles at that point. I think out of the original, we sold the 2018s already, but out of the original 2020, the 10 vans, I would say we probably have 2, maybe 3 that are still functional.
Wow.
But when they worked and the company was still in business, they were actually pretty cool systems. They really were. And that's my presentation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Does anybody have any more questions for me at all?
No, that was fun.
All right. Yes. What's the chemical process behind lot rot? I'm kidding.
I could answer that one for you.
We'll find out.
All right. Well, thank you.
For next
One
week. Yeah,
more
thank
thing.
you.
How much solar capacity do we have to charge this?
Really none, unfortunately. So our newer transportation building, it does have solar on it, but it's all used up by the building itself. The shop has solar too, but that also covers, it aggregates to the old administrative building on Clear Lake Avenue. And if there's anything left, it actually goes into our bus wash. So the power goes back into Pacific Power's lines, but they track that and then they credit us on the. So, but it wouldn't be much to really do much with that fleet, unfortunately. It's a pretty.
Well, we could put some solar panels on this building, get Paige to do another grant and figure out a way of.
And
What-
solar panels over parking lots to
Yeah.
get shaded parking?
If all 20 vans were charging, it'd be about 1.2 megawatts of power. It's quite a bit of power. It would be
Wow.
maybe an acre of solar panels to operate that possibly.
How many?
Maybe an acre.
Okay. A lot?
All right.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank
We
you.
have some reports. I think where's the agenda? Right. Moving on to reports. Were you going to?
I am.
Ooh, awesome.
Julie asked me to convey a couple of things, but before, I just wanted to highlight, I think what Nick pointed out to you is we're trying to explore a variety of alternative sources of fuel for our fleet. What that looks like now, we have a bunch of different sources and really trying to conserve costs, like trying to lower our costs and have sustainable, environmentally sensitive fuel. So I think the renewable propane was it wasn't necessarily a new idea, but it was an idea that kind of bubbled up again, and Nick kind of pushed it like, let's just try it. So I think staff is being really innovative and trying out things, and then also providing you information on things that have worked and things that maybe the technology when we entered that was a little green and we're having a little bit of difficulty with, but still kind of working out the bugs. So when he put this presentation together, I didn't even know all of the things we were doing. And I hope you are impressed like I am that we are, and it's really from your direction to look at these alternative fuel choices that we have gone in that direction. And so I think we have, the paratransit vans, that's going to be huge, that we are going to be running those solely on electric. And it'll be interesting to see, like Nick said, we need to work out how kind of our current business practice and how that actually works. And for those of you who have electric cars, like I said, there's the capacity, you get nervous about capacity, how much, what?
Range.
Yes, you have range anxiety. And so it'll be interesting to see how that all works. So I think we're going in a really good direction. And we're really happy that the federal government is continuing to give us the money for those electric vehicles, because there was a time when we weren't sure that was actually going to happen. What Julie wanted me to tell you is that we're working with the Oregon Transit Association. We're working with the governor's visioning group, both the broad visioning group and the transit specific visioning group, to provide them information. RVTD was selected as what's called an agency profile. So it's where they're going to drill down a little bit into an agency of our size and use our experience to convey what's going on from RVTD's perspective to these groups, to let them know, why have costs gone up as much as they have? Well, for RVTD, this is why. This is what we've experienced. How has our revenue gone up? And this is what it looks like. So, and what we've done in terms of the reductions in service, and what it might look like in the future. And basically what they are coming to is, even with a small addition to the state transportation investment fund, that 1/10, the 1%, most, if not all, agencies will go into what they're calling managed decline. And so they're really looking at alternative sources of revenue, not just looking at the stiff alone. So she just wanted me to let you know we're working on that, and we'll get asks from. It feels like the legislative session right now a little bit for us, because we'll get these asks and they'll come one day and they'll be like, in 2 days we need this information, and it's a lot of information that they need, and we want to be able to convey and provide really accurate information that really reflects what we're experiencing. And frankly, what we're experiencing, I think you could fairly easily extrapolate it to other districts when cuts are made. And I'll give you an example. So in 2023, we did a survey, and in 2025, we did a survey after we made some cuts. And really no surprise, when those cuts were made, and we heard this from the people who went out and talked to people during that time of the levy, which is, if people could buy a car, they unfortunately did, because service was reduced and they still needed to get where they needed to get. And so there were a lot of people who bought vehicles. So now what our ridership looks like is more of our ridership, a higher percentage of our ridership does not have access to a car, because we used to have people who kind of had access to a car, like their roommate might have had a car, or someone had a car. But now the people that are riding are very dependent on the service. And so the demographic of people that are riding because of the cuts, I think if other districts looked at what we're experiencing, they would experience the same thing, because the people who, if transit is cut, the people still need to get where they need to go, and they'll get that way by various means. So I think we're providing a lot of good information to the visioning group and the transit visioning group to see, and we'll see they're moving into, because they only have a very small number of meetings. They're only meeting like 8 times. So everything is very condensed. So they're already at this next meeting going to start look at funding ideas and funding alternatives for transit at the state level. So she wanted me to convey that to you, that we're continuing to work on it. And I think being an integral part of their decision-making process, which is really, it's kind of an honor. I wish we weren't in the situation that we're in, that we're having to do this, but the fact that they're really looking at our district says a lot about how our district is viewed statewide. So, wanted to let you know.
And how we're managed.
Yes. Most definitely.
Was somebody going to tell us about the survey? Is that you or Paige?
We're going to tell you about the survey at your next meeting.
Okay.
It's the survey is done, but the data hasn't been processed, I guess you could say, but we will definitely.
Well, we did have it on the agenda because I wanted to just report out that it was reported or completed last week.
Okay. Great.
It was intentional, Kelly, that we had this on there because I wanted to make sure that they understood that it was completed last week. We had 3 days of surveying, onboard surveying, much like how we do our regular onboard survey, except for this was a much more condensed survey questionnaire that focused on the service priorities, and then we have a little bit of demographic information as well. The good news is that we met our goal. We were trying to get 300 responses, and these were independent responses. So a lot of times when we do our passenger surveys, we are asking for them to fill out a survey on that specific trip. And then they'll board another bus and they'll say, oh, I already did that survey. And we'll like, no, we want you to do another one for this specific trip. That's not how we did it this time. This was more of a qualitative, what is your preference for transit service? So a lot of people who filled it out didn't fill it out again. And so we had more of an independent 300 response type of survey methodology. So that was very successful. Right now, our data responses are reflecting what we've already known. We have nearly 100% of respondents saying that they would like to see Saturday service. Nearly 100% of people that have filled out the survey say that they want Saturdays. Second in line for priorities are evenings. So our September, October data that we received back in 2025, which we wanted to sort of truth proof, are we in line with what we were hearing 6 months ago or so, well, more like 8 months ago. Is that consistent today? And it is. In fact, the responses were even higher than they were back then for Saturdays and evenings. So we're still trying to do some data cleanup and being able to provide you with a presentation at the next meeting in August, but just wanted to let you know that that did occur. We are seeing a very reliable results in terms of the service that we are anticipating adding and bringing to you as part of our suggestions and recommendations. So I'll just conclude that with that.
Thanks, Paige. Move on to other business. Has anybody not received the receipt and the monthly financial reports? It appears everybody's got those reports. Any general comments from the board? Okay.
Got one.
Okay.
I know in our meeting last month, we had a fellow, I think Mr. Buzzo, who gave public comment and said, hey, is there a reason why the public does not get access to the proposed budget at the same time as the budget commissioners on that committee? And I think the answer that we gave at the time was something like, that's currently how we have it set up. But I was curious, is there a business reason why we do that? Debbie.
It actually says on the posting that they put in the newspaper that person can come to the office and get a copy of the closed document.
Okay. Is there a reason why we wouldn't have it on our website or something?
I don't actually know.
Can I, so
It's what we've always done. But we do have posted on the announcement that goes in the paper and on the website to receive a copy of the budget, come to 101 South Front Street, the proposed budget. But we can change that going forward. I'm not sure why we've never done it. It was just, I came, that's what they were doing, so we've been doing that. Lou's been doing it that way forever, and so we can change that probably.
I don't think there's I think we've just done it that way. I don't think there's a reason necessarily, or maybe there was a thought that because we weren't having a public hearing at the budget committee meeting, we wouldn't provide it to the public. I don't know, but I do think that regardless of whether it's a public hearing, unless we're prohibited by law from doing it, which I don't think we are, I think we absolutely can do it and just post it on our website as opposed to having, because if someone can come in and get it, there's really no difference between that and us providing it on our website. We're saying it's
About 10
available.
pages in ink and paper. But,
Right, right. So I,
Trip down. I mean,
Right.
So a middle step would be just to let people know that if they contact us, we can send them an electronic version if we didn't want to publish the whole thing on the webpage. So that might be a middle ground. So
I'm equally fine with that.
I would add one more line on there that says, if you need an electronic copy,
yeah,
send your request to dwilbur@rvtd.org.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
You know, I don't want it to be up there after, like it's official anything. That's my only concern, but I would be happy to send someone an electronic copy. But it does say they can pick up a physical copy of it. That's not the same thing for most people anymore. So
Yeah.
it's more convenient, but I don't know. It's not my decision to make, actually.
I think Julie had mentioned it to me earlier when we talked, when she let me know she wasn't going to be here. And she thought it might come up. And her comment was, we should look at just putting it on the web, just because then it's available for everyone. No one has to contact anyone, but we can look at something different if it takes up like a lot of space, or I don't even know, because I'm not a technical person in that way. But I think we can look at doing something to address that. And in the modern age, it's probably pretty easy to just put it on our web and be completely transparent, as long as we're putting on that it's a draft.
Great. Thank you.
you mentioned our modern age. Maybe a lot of reasons not to do that. too,
Maybe.
sorry. Okay. All right. So I guess we'll leave it up to staff, but yeah, I guess you've heard sort of where we're headed with
Yeah.
that, a little more availability to address the concerns let us meeting. Okay, reports. Did we have an RVCOG meeting?
RVCOG does not meet in July.
Oh, nice. And there's no MPO report because they're not going to meet. They didn't, it's actually next week, but they're not meeting. So TRADCO. Arena.
They canceled their meeting.
Canceled. Okay. React.
Okay, RV Act.
Oh, someone met. Okay.
We had a very long meeting.
I bet.
It was-
a lot on the agenda.
It was a 3-hour meeting, or more, actually. I think it
Wow.
ended up being more. But it was a really important meeting, and I had copious notes, but I won't. And Paige was there too, so that's great. I'll give you kind of the high-level overview. A lot of the times at RV Act, we talk about the woes of ODOT. And then usually Steve Lambert reminds everybody that county is an important part of this because, the 50-30-20, 50% ODOT, 30 county, 20 city. This time was pretty good because they had different presentations where county got to really go into how important this is, how it's affecting the county, the budget issues, and also city of Medford presented that too. And it was interesting to, there's a lot covered, but I think one of the things, is interesting is that the city doesn't have as many miles of roads, of course, but they also have all the bike paths, the sidewalks, all the extra stuff that county and ODOT doesn't have. So basically, it was a lot about the cost of deferred maintenance, again, was always a big deal. And I think it was well attended, and think it gave a lot of information, and be happy to have Paige chime in and see what her takeaways were.
Well, I think you definitely hit the cliff notes there. The general sentiment is very much in line with the cost of providing capital projects, and the services is outpacing the revenues. And we're hearing that from ODOT and the counties and the cities. And each, we had several, I think we had Josephine County, Jackson County, the city of Medford, the city of Grants Pass. I know there was a couple of others there that each gave sort of a case study overview of their own experience with cost of projects and their revenues, and all of them essentially led to the same result, which is that there's not enough funding to accomplish their goals that they had set out to do even just 2 or 3 years ago. So I think that there's a overall perspective that additional funding is necessary for all of transportation, the industry as a whole.
Did they rank the public transportation projects for the discretionary funds? Did that happen? And did we rank high or no?
Good question. So, if you don't mind, Dr. Kraus, so we did have the STIF discretionary funds presented to RV Act. That is a requirement as part of our discretionary evaluation before it goes to the state. All of the transit projects from Josephine Community Transit and from RVTD were submitted with support. We have our projects that were for replacement buses, refurbishment buses, and Route 30 service. They asked what our priority is, and I submitted that the refurbishment of buses is our top priority, because for the amount of funding that we would receive, we would have 3 buses be refurbished versus 2 with our federal funds. Josephine Community Transit was not present at the meeting, and so they weren't able to provide a priority project to push forward. But all of the transit applications were supported by RV
So
Act.
they didn't prioritize them necessarily. They recommended all of them. Is that right?
They recommended all of them, but for us,
one preference.
we did,
Got it.
yeah, we did prioritize the refurbishment.
Great. Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, I'm going to exercise my discretion as chair to call us adjourned. Thank you, Bill. It's a long.
Have a good
Bye,
evening.
everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.